Lightweight bout here. Yanal Ashmouz coming in at plus 120 against Chris Duncan, who sits at minus 150. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 135 for the over, minus 165 for the under. The undefeated Yanal Ashmouz, 7-0 for Ashmouz, 10-1 for Chris Duncan. His only loss was on the Contender Series to Vyacheslav Borshev. He made his UFC debut his last time out in March and got a win against Omar Morales. And coming into this one against Yanal Ashmouz, he in his debut, he used a lot of his wrestling to secure that win. I gotta think that he goes to that again in this one because Yanal's coming off the big knockout win against Sam Patterson, and seems like he's got some bricks in his bricks for hands. I mean, 5'9", but he packs a punch, and he put Sam Patterson into another dimension and made him think he was still fighting. So, yeah, if I'm Chris Duncan, considering you look at his Contender Series fight too. I mean, he got knocked down in his Contender Series fight. They didn't score it on the UFC stats, but he definitely got knocked down. And he got knocked out on the Contender Series before. So the chin is a question. Honestly, in the Morales fight too, he got stunned a couple times. So I'm Chris Duncan. I'm probably going to look to the grappling. He's been training at American Top Team as well with the likes of Grant Dawson, Dustin Poirier, Yaroslav Amosov, Johnny Eblin. So very good training partners there. And a lot of the guys that like to use the ground game, especially Grant Dawson. So I think he could implement a solid grappling game in this one. It really just comes down to how well can Yanal fight that off, because packs a punch. That's probably what his game plan is going to be coming into this one. So who do you think comes out on top?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup just because in Chris Duncan's last fight, like Omar Morales gave him a little bit closer fight than I think people were anticipating. He was able to land 5 takedowns, 5 official takedowns on him. And, he looked good in the grappling department on the feet. It was a pretty close fight. Like you said, he kind of got stunned a couple of times. And is Omar Morales in the UFC anymore? Did he get cut?
He got cut.
He got cut. So that kind of makes you wonder too, like how good is Chris Duncan? Because he's not dominating guys like Omar Morales who aren't UFC fighters anymore. He did lose on the Contender Series by knockout against Slava Klaus, who's obviously a great striker. And then he gets to knock out against Charlie Campbell. So it's just hard to get a read on him. Like, is he ready for this level? Is he not? Obviously, he's had a little bit of hype around him. He's looked good in some of his fights, but against who? That's the thing. When he does fight decent fighters or even lower level UFC fighters like Omar Morales, who, had some experience, he struggled at times. He got hit at times. Against Yanal Ashmouz, hits like a truck, man. Going to hit harder than Omar Morales. I think he's going to have a little more volume than Omar Morales as well. And, if Chris Duncan wants to try to grapple with him, Ashmouz has shown that he can land takedowns of his own. He can defend. I know a couple of his PFL fights, or in his last PFL fights, it was kind of a back and forth at times in the wrestling department, and he kind of held his own and went all the way to decision. So, I didn't like I don't want to say Chris Duncan has a bad gas tank, but he did slow down in that Omar Morales fight as the fight went on. But you kind of seen the same thing out of Yanal Ashmouz too in the PFL. So I think it's a pretty even fight. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I think people probably think it's going to be somewhat close. I guess I don't know why I said that, but I just for some reason I think Ashmouz, had the big knockout here, but I don't see him going out there and flatlining a guy like Chris Duncan. I think Chris Duncan is durable enough and tough enough to where he's going to be able to eat some shots and he'll be there the whole fight. So I'm going to lean Chris Duncan here, especially in London. A lot of people are going to be rooting him on here. I think he gets it done. I think Ashmouz, it's a good fighter, is a tough fighter, but Chris Duncan, give me Chris Duncan.
It pains me to go against Chris Duncan because I like the training that he's getting in at American Top Team, but I got to go with Yanal Ashmouz just because slight underdog, undefeated. If you're getting a plus money on an undefeated fighter, it's never a bad thing. And I think Yanal, if he can defend the wrestling, I think he's got a great chance because I think he will have the bigger moments with the power. And if he can just stuff takedowns and make Chris Duncan stand and strike with him, then I think he could get a win, could get a knockout as well. So I'm going to go with Yanal Ashmouz.
My last thing, I just fear that like watching him against Sam Patterson get the big knockout, people are going to be all over him here, and maybe it's just a little too high on him. And when he can't find that early knockout or that big knockout, like what's he look like at this level going forward from there? So overall, though, I mean, not a lot to go off of, and still a lot of unknowns kind of on both sides at the UFC level. So betting wise, like I don't know if I can throw anything significant on either one right now, but if you're watching this London card on Saturday, I think this is one you really got to keep your eye on. It should be a fun fight either way.
Yeah, could be a big overcorrection for Ashmouz, but should be a fun fight either way.